Good luck. In the world, he's a good golfer, and he's very patient. It's good for me. He plays on a Tuesday morning. First Tuesday morning, there's two guys to me, no Chuck. So, next Tuesday morning, two guys to me, no Chuck. So, I called out to the house, Muriel answered. I said, I'd like to speak to the Phantom of the Fairways. We got that straight. Now we have another problem. We go to play golf. We get the golf clubs out. I bend over to get out some balls. I look around. He's vanished in thin air. Where'd he go? He's out in some field there practicing hitting balls. So it's going to be a problem. So Charlie, I have a little something here that might help us out. Oh.
This is the DST satellite. Yes.
Take a big rub. Don't forget to bring it with you next time.
I won't be there tomorrow because we'll be having
Jack has been one of our buddies since the Air Force in England. Shared many memories between our two families.
She had her first kiss with one of my sons. I won't say which one.
In the Colonel's bushes.
In the Colonel's.
I taught him how to climb trees.
Well, that's good. He's still climbing trees, but he's not kissing anymore. I was looking over this thing, and I really didn't recognize these two in the front. But then I look around the room, I see the second and third generation that look just like them back then. And then in the back here, I see somebody I do recognize, and they're burning up their excess antiques, I guess. In that type situation. We're here to celebrate this great event. It's the 50th anniversary. And these two are unique, really, compared to other people with 50th anniversary because they've been on vacation for 45 of those. A little background, Judy and I went to England at a place called Bergrup Park, and we were assigned there in March of 1963. So I think we're the oldest adult members, not members of the family, that have known them. And we were there. Chuck, we were told, was, I'll call him Chuck because that's how I knew him. They call him Charlie, Chuck, I don't know. But anyhow, he was on assignment. I didn't know what assignment. We met Muriel. She had 5 children. We learned that that Chuck was our urologist. He wasn't there, of course, but he was our urologist. And we also knew that he was a great proponent of, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so later on there were 7 instead of the 5 we started.
Speak for yourself.
Taking care of the Queen of Libya. The king had asked him to come down. He wanted an American doctor. Chuck went there. The poor queen had a urinary infection. Antibiotics cured him, and Chuck toured while poor Muriel held down the fort. All the way down the So that's basically where we first met them, and where we have been friends ever since then. So I'm going to talk a few events that took place in our association, not all of them, thank goodness, but a few. And the first one I'm going to title, in this particular case, The Gold Watch. Now Chuck, as I mentioned, was down in Libya. He took care of the queen. The king was very happy with his care and gave him a beautiful inscribed gold watch. Now Chuck, as you know, is kind of casual. And he also is a family-oriented guy, and he had one of the children at that time had a school experiment, so he got a vial of mercury and he put it in his pocket. He also played golf, which we found he played golf more than he was at the hospital, but in any case, he took his gold watch off, put it in his pocket, and there you know, the mercury totally coated that, and it took him more money to clean that watch up than it probably was worth to begin with. So that was the first thing. Muriel and Judy were both antiquers and shoppers, great ones, and they, of course, we had fewer cars, so they shared cars. Muriel had a kind of a heavy foot, but she was a good driver. And on the English roads, she and Judy were driving along with Muriel driving, Judy in the front seat, tearing through this country road, big sign, flood ahead, stop, we can do it, she said, right into the middle of a puddle. She ended up, they stalled, both of them jumped out. Judy ruined a pair of boots that she had just gotten that had fur lined, and she was up to her knees at least. Walked over, didn't faze Muriel at all, she hitchhiked a lorry. You know, Judy is back in the car sitting, waiting, because the lorry is taken off. She decides, well, I'll start it. She started, well, up, right out of the puddle, chasing her all the way down to find her. So, we took a trip to Paris. Now, it was a great trip. We had about 6 or 7 days in Paris and nights. It was really great. We went, I remember eating 3 o'clock in the morning the pied de cochon and having strip. I had to strip them. I didn't like that, but what we did, we got it. We had a lot of times. We had at Notre Dame. My poor wife got trapped up because she's afraid of heights, and we had to help her down. But what I do remember about that 6-day trip is that at least half of it, Muriel and Chuck spent in the American Aphex. Now, the American Aphex was our store, which was better than the English store, and she bought a lot of things, and Judy and I had to get a picture of the Eiffel Tower to show her later on just what it was like. That seemed to satisfy her, at least in that situation. There was a time when we were in our base where Muriel was quite sick. This is not at all funny. She was really quite sick, and I won't describe how she was sick, except that she had an awful lot of plain x-rays, a lot of GI series, I think even a barium, a few other things like that. Finally, the cause of the sickness was found, and that is Patricia. Anybody sitting near Patricia, thank goodness she's away, but if there's still a little bit of radiation. And Chuck has told me that Muriel glows at times in the dark, which is probably the reason Chris is around. So. And they're also quite a casual group. They took a trip to Scandinavia, coming back from Denmark. All of a sudden, somebody is waving at them, and they're waving back. Of course, there's 5 children then, and Chuck and Muriel in the car, and they're tearing through. And all of a sudden, they're surrounded by East German troops. They had passed through the border. Well, Chuck was on his knees. Muriel and the kids were crying on cue, and they finally let them go. They decided these people are not spies. All down the line. Now, we had a period of time when our hospital base shut down, or was going to shut down, and so they reassigned Chuck and Muriel to Wiesbaden. And Muriel and the kids flew off and left. She said everything was packed by the Air Force except for one closet. Now, if you've ever seen one of her closets, all I know is that Chuck was left with this car, and by the time it was packed, there were all kinds of legs coming out of the sides. He was wedged in a place that would make any race car driver envious, and off he went rattling along. I understand that he got to the channel, the French customs threw their arms up like that, he had a flat tire, And that was the end, but he finally did get to Wiesbaden and joined Muriel as far as that part was concerned. That car ended up in a kind of a tragic situation too. We did get moved to Lakenheath, Judy and I, and they were of course in Wiesbaden ahead of us, and they decided to come to visit. We had visited them and they decided to come to visit. So they drove from Germany, and in Belgium, their car totally burned up. Now I'll defy if any of you would have gone on with your trip at that stage. But they did. Somehow they found their way to the Channel. Somehow they got to London. Somehow they took a train where we picked them up in Lakenheath. And I was talking to Chuck the next day and I said, well, what are you going to do with your car? He said, geez, you know, we don't have any status of forces agreement with Belgium. I think I better get rid of it. How he got rid of it, I don't know. But he did eventually get rid of it on that part. So he left the service, they left the service before we did. We left in '66 and I think they were in '65. And they went into practice in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Chuck had a meeting in New York. He decided to come and visit us. Muriel wasn't with him at that time, and the first night we talked about Marshfield. It was great, wonderful thing. I met Henry Marshall. Some of you know him, a urologist here, and I mentioned I have a urologist friend in town. He said, oh, is he interested? You know, he said, you're interested in coming here? I said, well, I might be. And so I mentioned to Chuck. He saw Henry that night, and in 2 months they were here, all the way down there. We have one more thing that I wanted to mention, and that was the Logan Street house. Now, that was their first house, before they got the big flats. And for a while they owned 2 houses. In the middle of winter, the first house had all the pipes burst. Water was all over the first floor. Water was all over the basement. Max Parker, the poor realtor, called. He could not find Muriel and Chuck, which is not an unusual situation. We called, could not find them, called me. I went over, we set up a sump pump. They got lines running out of every orifice that was in that poor thing. Chuck comes wandering in eventually and he says, I've seen places like this that have been declared disasters areas. He looked around to me and he says, Jack, he said, you got any coffee at home? I said, yeah. I said, off we went, and poor Max was out there with a sump pump. So we've had a great number of experiences. I won't mean we've had bridge and travel and tennis and all these other associations that we've had. There's even one I think Chris can remember about I'll let him tell it sometime because it hurts him so, but it was a race that we had one time in swimming or something of that nature. But all in all, it's been a very brilliant association for over 41 years. They're a great couple, and I wish you all the best. Oh, there's Chris. Sorry to hurt you, Chris.
I felt guilty for 35 years because the reason that their house flooded was because they were attending Tim and my wedding in the dead of winter. And it was like, I can't believe that this is the consequence of joining.
Before I introduce the next group, I omitted one name from the family. It was Dewey Neal. You've seen him taking pictures all along. Oh, there he is. We're looking for you. Oh, there he is. There's always something going on. Well, anyway, Muriel and I are about 20 months apart, correct, Mom? 22 months apart. And so we grew up together, sort of like twins. We've been sisters for a long time. I won't tell you how old I am because she's a little older than I am. But what is most important to us is that we have been friends for a very long time. Not always in the beginning years. We had a few little bumps in the road. Like when she took the bobby pins out of my hair one night and I woke up in the morning with straight hair on one side, curly hair on the other side. Well, we don't talk about that, will we, Muriel? So anyway, Mom and Dad often dressed us alike. Mom Johnson, who I think most of you have met, made most of our clothes. We had lovely things. All through the years, Mom just made all these beautiful, beautiful things. Well, we grew up sharing a bedroom and a bed, you can see, and chores and fun. One time we had a big fight. We had made an agreement that I was going to do something for Muriel, and we scrubbed the kitchen floor. I did one half and Muriel did the other half. And she was going to scrub my half. Well, she didn't do it. And I was really mad about that. And no matter what Mom, and whatever Mom said to me, she could not threaten me enough. I would not scrub the other half. So anyway, but we mostly grew up together, and we were tight in many ways. As sisters, we never tattled on each other. We might have a little, disagreement here and there, but basically we were close. We lived in a small mining town, Virginia, Minnesota. Come here, Carl. And it was a mining town. They mined iron ore, and probably it's what kept the United States well into World War II with the iron that it produced. The mines went 24 hours a day. So all around us were these mines and the lights, these great big trucks. You could hear the crusher, you could hear the trains. And a lot of our friends' parents, fathers worked in these mines. Yeah, okay. So anyway, the mines produced a high grade of hematite. And that was the highest grade of ore you could have. So it was a very lucrative area and a lot of business. So in the other sense, we grew up in a wonderful town. The iron mines then and the people who worked them wanted wonderful schools, and we did have wonderful schools for an area where we had every ethnic minority, every ethnic group that you can imagine that all came together, none of them speaking the same language, but all of them working together and getting along. And that's where we grew up. But when we left high school, everyone spoke English very well, or those teachers would kill you. Well, Muriel was a very daring person. There's a picture of her over here, which you all should look at. And as a small child, she's up on a post, just standing there. I'm lying on the ground crying because, well, if I get this high, it's too high, believe me. She wasn't afraid of anything. Muriel was not afraid of anything. And I always knew I had this backup, that walking home from school, there were some tough kids around on the iron range. They threw snowballs. They had to deal with Muriel. We walked to our school, which was, we walked to school in the morning, we walked back for lunch, we walked back to school, we came back.
4 miles in each direction.
That's where we were. And so the snow drifts were about that high, but we were in our woolly snowsuits. And in the winter, we went to school, and then we came home and we changed our clothes. We put on our big woolly Nelson Mills snowsuits from Duluth, and we went outside and we played, and we made icy snowballs, and we collected icicles. We built forts to get those boys down on the corner. They didn't come around our house often because we were tough, led by Muriel. In the summer, we had a wonderful time. We went to the beach and we swam, and Muriel, who had been told, and we'd been told, never walk on the trestle. Muriel walked on the trestle every time to the beach, every time to the back, and I walked on the path like a good person. And one time a train came and Muriel had to get down under the trestle. And another time our father met us at the end of the path. He said, "Where's Muriel?" I said, "Oh, she's behind me on the path." We never, one thing we had, a code of honor. We did not tattle. Never. So in the summer we played, in addition, we played Vanishing Riders in the alleys. Can you get that, alleys? We played Can to Can, which is hitting the ball around. We watched the boys on the corner kill rats in their garbage cans. And we played croquet in our backyard. And Muriel was really a wicked croquet player. If you got your ball anywhere near hers, you had a buggy ride. You know what a buggy ride is? And she would whack you probably out into the back well. We also continuously broke the windows in our basement. And our suffering father quietly replaced all the windows in the basement. But I can tell you, Muriel. And also in the summer, on the 4th of July, we had all these races. We had a wonderful recreation department. And Muriel would win a lot of first prizes from the, the gunny sack and hopping on one leg, three-legged. And I was always worried that when we did the three-legged one, that I might be the one that would, not go fast enough. But we managed to do it. Another thing I bet you don't know, one thing about Muriel, she was a champion marble player. I would go out and lose marbles, these tough boys on the corner, and Muriel would come and, how much did you lose? She would go with her shooter and a handful of marbles and come back with all the marbles I lost. And more marbles, so that when Paul and Tim were along, they had this huge repository of marbles.
And Carol, she still has those marbles.
And being an antique collector, you better look at those. They're probably worth a lot. But anyway, Muriel was really a good sister. I always felt secure. I knew that if those boys down in the corner again, they were starting to shoot us with slingshots one summer. And Muriel and I we were both kind of crying. I mean, remember they come up out of the fence and shoot us? Well, one time we came home and we had a shed in the backyard, and our dad was back there, and he said, come here. And so Muriel and I went in the shed. He gave us 2 slingshots. Well, we knew what to do with those slingshots. And it wasn't long before those boys' mother was calling Mom Johnson, complaining about those Johnson girls. But Muriel, I mean, she was kind of the ringleader. But I blamed everything on her. Well, anyway, as I said, we had our 2 younger brothers. Muriel and I were like, we didn't have any brothers and sisters. We were the only ones, so we got kind of spoiled. And then about 5 years after I was born, along came Paul, and along came Timothy, and then our sister Adele, who we are very sad that she's not here tonight because they have a very chronically ill child. And we used to take turns taking care of our brother Paul. He was kind of wild, and we thought, this is really bad news. And we would be traveling along in the car, and we'd have a little animosity toward Paul, so we teased the heck out of him. And pretty soon my dad would say, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get a switch. And he never did, of course. He was very soft-hearted. Well, as you can see, we're all united through those childhood things. Well, we grew up in a house that was a big, Victorian stucco house, and we were 2 houses from the library, and Muriel and I spent a lot of time in that library, and between us, or each of us must have read that whole library down. And you probably know that Muriel's a night owl, and that I know when Chuck would say, Muriel, I'm going to turn off the light. Oh, I just have a few more pages. But we would sit in the hallway, and then we'd hear Mom coming, and then we had a flashlight that we managed to get, and lie under the covers and read. We were very good at sneaking around like that. So anyway, we just loved that library, though. It was important to us. Well, as Muriel became a young lady, all the young men in town were very interested in Muriel. She had all kinds of admirers. They were around all the time. I remember one incident when Mom and Dad went out, and she sent our grandma out to check up on us. We were up on the roof of the porch pouring buckets of water down on all these boyfriends. So you can see, we did a lot of things like that. But Muriel also was very active in school. she did all kinds of activities. I won't even list them, but she just really had a lot of energy. Well, then when she went to St. Paul, well, the other thing I wanted to say that Muriel was a homecoming attendant. She was a homecoming queen. She was a beautiful, beautiful, and is young woman, and you noticed her when she went by. Mom made us all these, Johnson, she made us these beautiful, beautiful clothes to wear, and she was so talented, and we were very fortunate, all of us, to have Mom just, you know, do all these things for us. Well, Muriel then went through high school, and then eventually junior college, and went to St. Olaf College. And between her junior and senior year, she worked on, was that junior and senior year? She worked on this boat on the Great Lakes. And she did have sort of a boyfriend then. And we kind of liked Mill. He was a nice guy. And then all of a sudden we started to hear about Chuck. And the family was astounded. One day, I think Mom and Dad went to the Duluth and did meet Chuck, didn't he, one time? Well, then we got about, within 2 months, we had this long distance phone call. And it was Muriel saying, I'm engaged. I have accepted a ring. And I remember what Mom said. Give it back! Not give it back. And soon our household was filled with all kinds of activities, getting ready for a wedding, and so she graduated from St. Olaf, and then that following August they were married, and Muriel was going on 21, and it was a big family deal. So now this tight family, and we always been, you know, Muriel, Carol, Paul, Tim, Ardell. Now there's Muriel and Chuck all the time. And it took him a little while to get used to us because out at Lake Vermilion, where we had our family cabin, we had, I don't know if you know what a sauna is, but it's a Finnish steam house. And what we did was to test future relationships in that sauna. There's a fire, and you have rocks on top, and you pour water on, and you tell the unsuspecting person to sit on the top bench. And if they survived, and Chuck did, I mean, they didn't know what was coming for them. And Sheldon, my husband, he also survived. And so then the years went by, and Muriel and Chuck, of course, had 7 children. Sheldon and I were not in this race. But we have shared many vacations with their family. We've traveled with them, and we've had many Johnson family reunions at that cabin at Lake Vermilion. We played Scrabble, and guess who always won? She had those those 2-letter, 3-letter words, and so she came up with like about 20 points. So we tried to figure out how we're going to beat her, so we challenged her, and then we decided that the 1936 dictionary was the only resource that she could go to. So we kind of fixed her, So while we were there as adults and cooking all these meals in the kitchen with Grandma Johnson just supervising us, and then all of our children are down in the sauna steaming and running out into the water and having a good time, we were up there sharing and doing all these things. So now all these children have grown and their own children, and we are all one big family, as you can see. And most important of all, we are friends. We all like each other. Can you believe it? We all like each other. And we're always looking for our next get-together. So Muriel and Chuck, blessings to both of you. Much love for all of us. And it's been a pleasure having you.
Along the way came Chuck, he's been a wonderful guy. And my part, what I want to talk about is where I really got to know them was later on in life. The early years were sort of a blur, they were gone, and it really started when I was around age 20. And this is about the time Travels with Charlie started. And there were many versions of Travels with Charlie. There was the American version, the European version, a side trip to Africa, to Libya. But the ones I always loved was when they came to northern Minnesota. And it was one right before they left for going overseas. They had an Opel, which Jack mentioned earlier. This was an Opel wagon, and today it would be classified as a subcompact if it was that. And on this car, as it came into town, it was a pale blue, if I remember correctly. And in this car were squeezed 4 children and 2 adults. And there was as much on top of that car as there was in the car. And when they came rolling into town, they must have gone down Main Street because by the time they got to our house, every single kid in town was over there looking at this car. And they thought the local carnival had come to town. And when they saw all these people pouring out, they were sure of it. Well, with people, over the years, the ride just began then, and it has continued, and it's been a merry journey with them, and the ride is still going on. And still, when they come to visit, when we see them, the car is still the same. Only now, instead of children, it's books. And we've loved all the moments we've had with you.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Oh, good evening, everybody. I'm Tim, and I'm the younger brother, 11 years younger. And one thing, you know, when you first met Chuck, I was quite a young fellow, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And Chuck really impressed me because I remember he was at Lake Vermilion, he was reading a medical journal, and a yellow jacket landed on his arm. And I was pointing at it, ready to give it a good whack, and he was just calmly just telling me to take it easy. And it crawled up his arm and down, back down again. And he just let it stay there, and I was very impressed with that. That if you stay calm in the face of adversity, all this nature will just take care of itself. Well, my brother Paul tried that same thing in a spot that was close to that. In fact, he was asleep, as calm as you can get. But unfortunately, his head was covering a hole that little paper wasps use for their nest. It didn't work out the same way for him. And so as a young lad, I remember you have to always take things into account, but don't take things absolutely. Chuck was calm. Muriel was a little bit more volatile. Just a little bit more volatile. And I don't know which story I should tell, but I suppose one that includes both Carol and Muriel was a time when we had a small cabin and we were building the larger cabin at Lake Vermilion. And my dad had asked me once, he said, go wake up those girls. They were sleeping in the smaller cabin. And I had gone over there and I had banged on the door and done all the things and yelled in the cabin and came out, and a half hour later they still weren't around. And he said, I told you to wake those girls up. And so you don't have to tell a 7-year-old boy twice about what his mission is supposed to be. And we had a wood pile in the back of the lot. In the back of the wood pile there were bats that used to like to sleep, and if you grabbed them by the back of the neck like that, they were asleep, of course, during the day. And if you opened the door and you had one in each hand and just let them go, they came out of the cabin very quickly. Both of them running, and my dad was impressed. He said, well, that kid can really get them going.
It's not the only thing you did.
So Muriel was volatile, but you know, one of the things about people in the background of people like Muriel, my sister, myself, and my mother were Finnish. You think of Finns and Scandinavians as being cool, calm and collected. But you also have to think about it as like being like a volcano. You are cool and calm, but the idea of fire and ice is one that's here also. And I think, Mom, I'm going to ask you to put your hands on your ears. Finns have some very nice swear words. And in doing it, you have to keep your ears covered.
No, don't do it. Don't.
I like to call them the devils. But I can't do it if you don't have your ears covered. And the first devil is Satan. Sot! It's a good word. And then they follow it up with a second one. It's Berkeland. I don't know what that is, but it's the second devil. But if the first devil is followed by the second devil, you better be running. Muriel would have us running without using either of those. That's how volatile she was. One time she had my brother and I don't know what we had done, but we were up in the gulag on the second floor of our house in the back bedroom, and the door was locked. But there was a sheet on the bed, and there was a veranda next to it. We got onto the veranda and took the sheet, and we were on the ground. And here was Muriel out the door with eggs, and man, those eggs were nuts and eggs. But she's a great sister. We've always loved the action, and I think that perhaps some of this prepared her to have the patience for 7 wonderful children and grandchildren, and she loves all of them, and we all do too. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming with us tonight.
Thank you.